I'm sure we all have a few series we love, but feel don't get the attention they deserve. Whether they be diamonds in the rough, too old or too new, or just niche in appeal, these series go largely unnoticed by many, despite how much they speak to us. I think that's normal, honestly, and in some ways beautiful, for how personal that makes the experience. But at the same time, I think it can be valuable to give such things greater exposure where we can, so others might find something to love in them as well. It's honestly a big motivation behind my making video essays. I want to spread the love for some of the more niche things that mean a lot to me. I know they're often niche for a reason, so I don't intend to make the case that actually everyone should be playing and enjoying them. But if I can introduce the series to someone who ends up clicking with it, that's a win in my book. And failing that, at least I get to talk about something I think is cool for a bit. So yeah, that's the deal with the subject of today's video, the God Eater series. A little bit of what it is, and a lot of what it does that makes it special to me. And if that sounds interesting, maybe stick around. So to start off, what is God Eater? Well, God Eater is a series of games in the hunt genre, basically the genre that Monster Hunter codified. Like Monster Hunter, the game revolves around the idea of taking on big beasties that dwarf humans in both size and strength. But through ingenuity, teamwork, and incredible violence, humanity is able to conquer these would-be predators. Unlike Monster Hunter, however, God Eater places a great deal of emphasis on its story and characters. I think that this, along with its meticulous world-building, is where the series truly comes into its own. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's first take a look at what you actually do in the games. Originally, this section was going to be a lot longer, but it bloated the script so much that I excised it before it could metastasize. I don't know, maybe I'll make the more detailed breakdown its own video down the line, but for today, a general overview. In this series, you follow a general gameplay loop of talking to characters in a hub area, where you'll also craft gear and prepare your kit for missions. Going on said missions, where you'll engage in action combat against larger-than-life monsters called origami, collecting parts from the felled foes, which you then use as crafting materials back at the hub to make stronger gear to take on yet stronger monsters. Pretty standard stuff for the genre, at least in broad strokes. Plenty of differences in the specifics, but yeah, we're trying to keep this quick. Suffice to say, if you're familiar with Monster Hunter, the main points of adjustment are the slightly faster combat tempo with more focus on mobility, the 3-part loadout system of melee weapon, gun, and shield, and the literal rocket science that is bullet customization. But we'll be leaving it at that before this script derails entirely. Moving right along, one of the things I love about God Eater is its story and the focus placed upon it. It's what originally hooked me on the series, despite having never really clicked with the genre before. Throughout the games, you not only have your own story as a player, getting stronger and overcoming greater and greater challenges, but you also have a place in the world and a reason to fight. You have goals to accomplish and people to protect, and on top of that, there are discoveries to be made and mysteries to be solved. All these things helped me become invested in the game, to the point where I was willing to learn its mechanical intricacies that might have otherwise felt impenetrable. But enough generalities. What is the story actually about? Well, the series takes place in our world, in the not-so-distant future, where things have taken a less than ideal turn for the whole life on Earth thing. That's right, we got ourselves a bona fide post-apocalypse scenario. Creatures called origami showed up one day and started wrecking shop. On top of their insatiable desire to consume anything and everything, they proved to be highly resistant to conventional weaponry. Add in their astounding rate of reproduction and evolution, and things weren't looking too hot for other organisms, both human and not. However, humanity did manage to gain back a foothold, developing a new method to fight back. It became clear that the only thing that could take down an origami was another origami. And so, in a desperate play, they created 2 new weapons. God Arcs, artificial origami that take the form of weaponry, and God Eaters, human origami hybrids who are the only ones capable of wielding said God Arcs without the weapons devouring them whole. With these new developments in hand, humanity has managed to secure itself sanctuaries inside city-like megastructures, mostly capable of keeping the origami at bay. and while by no means safe, this has allowed them to take 1.5 steps back from imminent extinction. Each game in the series takes place at a different point in time in this world, following chronological order with each numbered entry, and deals with a different set of events and crises humanity faces in this origami apocalypse. This means there's a continuity built between entries, and names and or faces from previous entries will make an appearance in later ones, but it's not strictly necessary to play the series in chronological order. I would personally still recommend it, but with each game centering around a different crisis, you'll be given enough information to follow along no matter where you start. So yeah, this series setting is absolutely my vibe. The story is as well, but I want to be careful not to say too much beyond the basic premise, so as to not spoil anything for new players. What I can say about the story, though, and what sets it apart from most other post-apocalyptic series, is that God Eater is a post-apocalypse that believes in people. That even in a world gone to hell, it's our humanity that will see us through, not be our undoing. I would be remiss not to talk about the music of the series as well. I'll keep this section brief, as music analysis is far outside my wheelhouse. But I just gotta say, Go Sheena is my dude. Hopefully all of that is tracks playing along in the video, but the man has a distinctive style that I am 100% down with. His use of upbeat tunes across an eclectic assortment of genres, and the ethereal, almost alien vocals he often employs, all of it, right into my veins, please. In my previous video, I had talked about Star Ocean and how its world building sets it apart from most others in the medium. And I'd personally say that God Eater is among the few which are rival to that, and in many similar ways. For starters, we see again my old friend, the in-game encyclopedia, here known as the database. This is a repository of so much more lore and explanation than could ever be reasonably exposited within the main plot. At least not without tainting the pacing. Like Star Ocean, God Eater's archives go into remarkable detail on the how and why of the world and its magic system, which helps to ground so many fantastical elements into a plausible-sounding science that serves to reinforce the series' narratives and themes, not to mention bolstering suspension of disbelief. I won't get too technical here, as this is, again, supposed to be a brief overview, but suffice to say that the game explains and justifies basically every plot point and element of its setting in such an impressive way that it genuinely does feel like a science. That everything makes sense and builds off previously established rules and principles, to the point where I could look back afterwards and see how the magic system itself foreshadows the events of the story. Again, no spoilers here, but the more you dig and the closer you pay attention, the more you're rewarded with answers, and I truly love that kind of storytelling. I think what most endeared this series to me, beyond even the story and world building, was its characters. Now, I'll be real. Odds are, these are not characters you haven't seen before. Even setting aside there being nothing new under the sun, and that originality is a farce we delude ourselves into believing when all we are capable of as mere mortals is reconfiguring pre-existing information into seemingly novel arrangements to pretend we have some agency in this world and aren't in fact shocked into the machine of causality that determines our entire lives before we were even born. What just happened? Feels like I went to a dark place for a second there, but I can't remember what it was. Oh well, probably not important. What were we talking about? Oh right, characters. So yeah, depending on your familiarity with anime-style stories, you'll probably recognize a lot of the archetypes being used here. But much like the Tales of series, the value of the characters is not so much in whether they fit into an archetype, but rather how that archetype is implemented. See, each character is not simply their archetype. It's the first impression you get of them, and arguably the foundation they were based upon. But as you progress the story and go on missions with these characters, you'll get to see more sides to them. Things you might not have picked up on before, or ways they've grown as a person in your time together. From little personality quirks and hobbies to full-on character arcs and changes in your relationship dynamics. All these things are given time to shine naturally through the repetitive structure of the games. In addition to their actions and dialogue in the story itself, you also get to know these characters bit by bit as you take on missions together. Their voice lines on the missions, their combat habits, their behavior in the downtime between operations, and even their equipable abilities. All these things serve to give you subtle insights into who these people are and who they've become. Combine this with the Stockholm Syndrome, the mere exposure effect. I mean the amount of time you get to spend with and grow attached to them, and I found myself really caring for them as time went on. I think this shows the unique potential this genre has for storytelling specifically. Not just that good stories can be told in these games, but that they are uniquely advantaged in certain ways that more traditionally story-focused genres aren't. So yeah, that's God Eater. As I've said, it's a series I care quite a bit for, and hopefully I've been able to explain a bit as to why. I know it's never going to be everyone's thing, but if you haven't tried it out, and anything I said here sounded interesting, I really recommend giving it a shot. You may be pleasantly surprised by what you find. And if you have played it, I'd be interested to hear what you think. Did it click for you, like it did for me? Did you get something different out of it? Did you bounce off it entirely? Whatever your story is with the series, feel free to share in the comments if you like. I may like talking about the series, just a bit, so I'd enjoy the chance to hear others' perspectives on it. Either way, though, thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to my ramblings. I hope it wasn't too scattered. And have a good one.